Welcome to Change It Up Radio here with Paula Shaw. I am so tickled to be with you today and to have the guest that I have coming to join us today. Her name is Amikaeyla Gaston, and she is truly one of the bright lights on the planet. She has dealt with adversity beyond your worst nightmares and has come back as this beacon of light, of healing, of joy, and of song. So please stay with us because in just a few minutes, Amikaeyla Gaston will be joining me. But first, we want to talk about all the opening things that we usually do at the beginning of this show. So welcome to Change It Up Radio. I am calling this episode, Which Wolf Will You Feed? As you know, this show is about change, helping people deal with change, helping people, spotlighting change makers who are trying to make the world a better place. And you know, we've talked about this before, but darn it, we're going through a lot of change right now, aren't we? The world is in almost daily upheaval for one reason or another. And so it's a time when we really do need to master how we deal with change. And what we try to do on Change It Up Radio is bring you information to help make change smoother and more productive for you. And we also try to spotlight change makers, people who are out there trying to make the world a better place. And I think today we're accomplishing both things because my guest is somebody who has had to deal with huge upheaval of change and has really come out on the other side. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about light and darkness and how we can't control what happens on the planet. I think we're all very, very aware of that right now in light of the that's going on, the political stuff that's happening, the racial upheaval that's going on. There's a lot happening right now in this country. And a lot of it really needed to happen because change often doesn't come without upheaval. But when stuff's going on, when the upheaval is happening out there, we always have a choice to either come to it, deal with it from a place of lightness or a place of darkness. And this morning, perhaps it's because I just had my 70th birthday over the weekend, I don't know, but I'm going to share a parable with you, which is not something I usually do, but I love this one. Many of you may be familiar with it. But I think the message is huge. And this is the parable. Let's see. There's a wonderful story from the Cherokee Indian tradition. An old grandfather said to his grandson, who came to him raging with anger at a friend, "I too have felt great hate for those that have taken so much with no sorrow for what they do. But hate wears you down and does not hurt your enemy. It's like taking poison into your own body and wishing your enemy would suffer and die. It is as if there are two wolves inside me. One is kind and understanding and does no harm. It works to benefit the entire pack. He lives in harmony with all around and does not take offense or plot revenge. His heart is open and available to the Great Spirit. The other wolf is always vengeful, vicious, and full of anger. The littlest thing will set him into a fit of anger. He fights everyone and for no reason. He kills without cause or remorse. He cannot think because his resentment, anger, and hate are so great. His heart is closed to the Great Spirit. Sometimes it is hard to live with these two wolves inside me. Both of them try to dominate my spirit." The boy looked with amazement into his wise grandfather's eyes and asked, Which one wins, grandfather? The grandfather smiled and said, the one that wins is the one I feed. And I think those words are incredibly important because we're all at choice right now about which wolf will we feed, because we all have both wolves inside of us. We can, and remember this about energy, because you know I come from the field of energy psychology, and so I look at everything from an energetic place. What I know is that whatever we focus on, we feed energy to. And whatever we feed energy to grows. So, like the parable of the wolves, do we want to feed the anger and the vengefulness and the resentment? Or do we want to feed the peace and the light and the love and the joy? We're all at choice right now, and really it's out there. We can run with it if we want to. We can focus on all our fears about the upcoming election, our fears about the situation in our country in as far as racism. We can talk about all the movements and the protests and all the things we think are terrible, or we can focus on change is coming. Good things are happening. Everybody is aware now that every life matters. But through Black Lives Matter and this movement, we've all really had the opportunity to take a look at where we really are, what we really think, what we really hold on to, what we really project, whether we realize it or not. It's an amazing time. Huge stuff is happening in our world, and we're at choice whether to run with the negativity or stay in hope, light, and love. That's not always easy to do. As we all know, anytime we've been hurt, anytime we've been abused, anytime that we have gone through upheaval and negativity in our lives, it's not easy. It's not easy to take that high road. It's not easy to focus on what's good when it looks like everything around us is negative and scary and awful. But we are at choice. We are. You know, I think sometimes we forget that we're at choice. We feel overwhelmed. Excuse me, we feel overwhelmed with the negative things that are going on. We feel overwhelmed by our own feelings. And I'm not saying pretend everything is love and light and joy when you're not feeling that. We have to feel what we're really feeling. And it's important to do that. As a grief expert and a grief therapist, I will never be the one to tell anybody not to feel their feelings. But I will be the one to say, feel it, express it, and move through it. I've mentioned this before, I'm going to say it again. Emotion comes from, if you break it down, E, energy in motion. Feelings are energy. They're big, they're part of us, they well up inside of us. But we need to feel them. We need to express them, whether that's in words or tears or moving our bodies and getting that energy out. But then we need to move on. If we stay stuck, if we don't move through that energy, we can't grow. We can't know joy. We can't know love. We won't. We'll stay stuck in the low vibration of all those negative feelings. And when I invited Amikaeyla Gaston to be my guest today, it was because the first time I ever saw her on stage at an energy psychology conference, she walked out on that stage and she burst into song, and I had no idea what was coming. I quite honestly didn't even know at that time who she was. But whoa, there was an energy that filled the room. And it was big and it was bold and it was positive. And she shifted everybody's energy in that room with who she is. And today she does that in healing people through her music. She truly, and this didn't happen, it didn't come to her easily. I'm going to have her tell you her story when I bring her on in the next segment. This woman has known suffering. This woman has every right to keep feeding the dark wolf. But she didn't. She didn't. And what she's been able to do as a result is truly inspiring to every single one of us. And I am so excited to share her with you today and to share her message with you, because when I reached out to her, I said, I think the country has never, ever needed a message more than right now it needs yours. And she said, yeah, girl, let's riff. And I said, perfect, let's do it. And so in my next segment, I am going to be just so delighted to introduce you to Amikaeyla Gaston. So please stay with me, because you do not want to miss this woman. All right, we will be right back. All right, Facebook live stream viewers, you know that we actually don't go to a message here. That's going to all be done in the studio. So I am going to just grab my glasses and grab this bio and introduce you to an amazing woman. So, all right. I have to push my little timer, which I sometimes forget to do. Here we go. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio, here with Paula Shaw. I am over the moon to introduce you to my guest today, and you're going to be over the moon that you got to meet her, I promise you. Her name is Amikaeyla Gaston, and she has been proclaimed as one of the purest contemporary voices by NPR, National Public Radio. She is a force for change, a cultural arts ambassador for the State Department, as well as a highly sought after performer and public speaker. She travels worldwide doing expansive work with political refugees, war survivors, and jeopardized populations. And she's a healer, my friends. She is a healer, and I think that's probably the most all-encompassing thing I can say about her. Her bio goes on forever, but I think it would be more appropriate and wonderful for you to get to experience Amikaeyla Gaston herself. So, Ami, please join me.
Hello, my darling. How are you?
Just great. I'm so happy you're here.
Me too, me too. Yes, girl, let's riff. I love it.
Well, Ami, I've given them a little hint about your story. I think it's such a powerful, important story, especially today, because there's a lot of anger out there. There are a lot of people who are just feeling like the world is hopeless, and that anger is the only thing that they can feel. They can't get out of it. But you've got a story of overcoming some amazing obstacles. Obstacles isn't even the right word. Some huge.
I would love to tell you that story, but first we have to really just take note of the fact that you just had a 70th birthday, girlfriend, and you look fierce, okay? Let's be super clear about that. You look amazing,
Thank
amazing.
you.
So happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. Anyway, you know the rest.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I actually really loved in the proverb that you were just reading, the parable talking about the two wolves, really speaking about how hate is a personal poison.
Mm.
And I think that that is the crux of my story, but everyone's story. We can choose to come from this place of hate, or we can choose to move through that. And get to the place of brightness, which brings lightness, which brings love and joy and extension into creating community. And I think what's so apropos right now, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of, everything that's happening, like you said,
Mhm.
politics and things that are happening socially and economically and politically and spiritually, everything is kind of in this place of evolution and awakening. And
Yes.
we can really look at it from that perspective because, I don't know if you know anything about permaculture and farming, but the way that you get the fields to really get the fruits of next season's labor is you have to burn everything down, honey. You have to burn it down to the ground so all the nutrients can get really filtered into the soil. And that from that comes richness and beauty. And
Mm.
right now, I'm in California, girlfriend, so the fires are burning.
Oh, yes. I'm in California
Sky,
too.
you okay? So the sky is crazy right now. It's
It
really
is.
orange. It looks like it's always dusk. And, some people are like, oh my God, it's the apocalypse. It looks like that. We could look at it that way, or we could think of it like as a moment where we realize that, Mother Earth, she is really doing a huge cleaning job. She's like, everything's getting swept, everything is getting wiped down, everybody
Nature
going.
cleanse.
That's right.
Nature cleanse.
It's a big nature cleanse, and it makes me think of this song. I don't know if you've heard of the group Sweet Honey in the Rock. They're incredible, and
No.
there's a song that they sing. It goes like this: Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath. When the fire's voice is heard, 'tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. And it goes on to talk
Beautiful.
about how the voices of our ancestors speak to us through things like the trees and the grass and the
Mhm.
forests and the ocean. And if we're awake, we can hear that. And I think that that's the power of not having hate live inside of you like a poison. That's not what you feed. That's not the wolf you feed. The wolf that you feed is the one that's going to give you the energy to move forward and sprint and be alive and participate in this life that we've been given that's so amazing. And I think I can come from this place of speaking about that life because this is my second go around, honey. I'm 104. You don't even know because I got lotion and differences.
Girl, you're looking amazing too.
Hey, that's why I have to testify about you looking 70 and fierce. But honestly, it's really because I was killed in a hate crime in Michigan. And I talk about it a lot and people are like, "Do you ever get tired of telling that story?" And the truth of the matter is that it's not about me in the story. I serve as a metaphor for choosing this powerful positive way of being in life for other folk who believe that the only way is to stay in suffering. And I think that you know, just a really quick giblet of the story, which is, I was going to a music festival right before I went into medical school, and I really wanted to, like, I've been a musician for so long and a singer for so long. I really wanted to, like, spend my last 2 weeks of summer before I did this deep dive into sciences and, like, living in medical school and then hospitals and not being able to do this anymore.
Right.
I really wanted to be in music. And so I went to this festival, and these five guys driving this big truck decided to go check out the dikes is what they said literally, and
Hmm.
drove into this field of flowers where I was sitting there being the ultimate flower child. I was very proud of myself. I had a flower child t-shirt on that I had tie-dyed myself, honey. I was like, oh, flower child in the field of flowers, ha ha ha, literal pun. But anyway, I was out there and all of a sudden I was struck by this truck and I was rolling under the truck and I got lodged between the wheel and the exhaust, and my skin was cooking and I literally died under the truck. And you can check out my TED Talk, Dare to be Dauntless, if you want to hear the rest of the story. But the real meat of the story is not the hit and not the hate crime, but the recovery and the near death experience. So I died under the truck. I left my body. I went through this whole incredible experience, like out of my body, in this place of ethereal nothingness, like really feeling connected to air and sky. And they always talk about when you die, you go to a light of your understanding. You know,
Mm.
little kids walk to the light that's, in their parents' kitchen, or if you
Mm.
like being a lawyer, you go towards the light of your office or whatever it is. But you go to this light of your deepest, truest understanding. And mine was the setting sun. And it was because when my parents were traveling all the time when I was a kid, we would take the last flight so that we would go to sleep on the plane. And so we were always flying towards the setting sun. And I just love the way that the setting sun feels. And when I was out of my body, after my physical self had died, I was floating towards the setting sun. And I remember in that moment feeling completely in alignment and in connectivity with the universe. I could feel literally the air molecules rushing through me because I was out of body. I was one with the universe. And that ethereal sense a lot of times allows for us to remember that we are still connected with everything around us if we pay attention, if we are aware. And I think that that's the power of now. What's happening now around us is that Mama Nature doing her clean out job is reminding us that we need to be paying attention to the things around us. We need to pay attention to the fact that global warming is happening and that plastic doesn't just vanish. It goes into the oceans. It does all these different things. And so we have to be mindful to the ways that we move in connectivity with one another as well as with nature. And so in that moment when I was ethereal and going towards the setting sun, when I chose to come back, the minute I was like, oh, I actually could stay here. This is not so bad. It's pretty groovy. My body was like, no. And I swelled back into my body, and I had, 2 years of recovery, and it took a really long time to get through that. And while I was in recovery in the hospital doctors were, I saw everybody, honey. I saw the bone doctors, the skin doctors, the internal organ doctors, the head doctors, and in particularly the psychiatrists who were trying to get me to get to a place of feeding that other wolf.
Mm.
Talk to us about the anger that you feel towards these guys who committed this hate crime against you, and talk to us about that. And I knew in that moment that first I needed to focus on getting healed. And I think that's kind of the essence of what you were saying earlier, that we put energy towards what we need the most to bring us to a place of wholeness, lightness, and brightness to bring forth the love. So I knew that I couldn't stay in a place of like, yeah, get those suckers, they ran me over and they killed me. Yeah, that too, but that's later. Then that's for somebody else. For me right now, I need to focus on healing and getting better. And I think a lot of times our society is so focused on consumerism and greed and not allowing people to have the time and space to heal. It's kind of interesting that COVID's happening because people are able to pull in and pay attention to themselves, pay attention to getting their core needs met, to taking care of themselves. And that's giving us an opportunity to pay attention to the society we live in. So we are starting to talk about, Black Lives Matter and how important that is to be the springboard to look at how everything matters, right?
Yes.
And also getting us to pay attention to politics right now and to look at, who is going to be the one that's going to bring this country that we live in to a place of harmony with the rest of the world. That to me is the goal. And with all the work that
And
I've
Ami,
girl, I'm just rambling on. Yeah, jump in, girl, jump in. I could talk.
I don't want to stop you because that's
Oh,
so
go for
critical
it.
what you're saying. But we have to take a little break, and when we come
Okay.
back, let's pick up right there.
All right, cool.
Here we go. All right, so Facebook live stream viewers and Ami, we're not really going to go to a break here. Paula's just going to reset her little time clock, and we're going to come back and we'll get right into what you were just saying. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio, here with Paula Shaw. Actually not in studio with me. I keep wanting to say that because I wish we were sitting together, Ami. But I am talking with today Amikaeyla Gaston, who has got an amazing story. In our last segment, she told us how she was killed in a hate crime and then spent 2 years recovering. And while most of us would think, oh my God, if anybody's got a reason to be filled with hate and hurt and anger, it's Ami. but she's not. So, Ami, you were just talking about how COVID has been a kind of a blessing because we've had to shut down, go inside. We've had a chance to really look at how we're treating the earth, what's going on in terms of the society we live in and the many cultures in our society, and what's going on politically. Who can lead us out of this? So please go on with what you were saying.
Yes, I think that it's a really poignant time. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about this, Paula. Like, do you see a shift in the energy that you've been receiving from the show and from your talk show about people's, desire to have it feel good, but it still feels really bad and yucky, and you're a grief counselor, and like, is
You
that?
know, I definitely see we're all struggling, we're battling, and I think many people do feel hopeless and helpless,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the reasons I wanted you on today, Ami, because I think we forget that we always are at choice about
Mm-hmm.
how we respond to
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in the world. We can't control what's happening, but we're at choice as to how we respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, whether we really want to focus on the negatives and get all heated up and have these discussions that are all hot and angry, or whether we want to focus on what is the world we want. What
Yes.
is it we want to see politically in this country? What do we
Mm-hmm.
want to experience with our fellow men?
Mm-hmm.
I, I, I am trying to encourage people to move in that direction because
Mm-hmm.
the other the other position I think is just going to create more of the same. And we've
Yeah.
seen the same ain't working, we got to change it.
Yeah, the same as well as the same plus stress. My poor father, he sits around all day and he watches the news all day
Ah,
and he stresses about watching the news all day. And a lot of us sit at home, we aren't doing anything, we start watching the news, we're with the news all day, we feel like everything is hopeless and we feel helpless. And so that, everything starts spiraling from there.
yeah.
And I think that, a friend of mine, she's a fabulous astrologer, Caroline Casey. She just said this to me this morning. She said, "We need to move from reaction to response." And that's a very different
Yes.
intention, exactly. Reaction is very hot and heated. You aren't empowered from that place. But if you move to a place of response, it's kind of like if you're falling, you can either fall and you can flail, or you can turn and dive and focus your energy
I love
exactly where you want to land, exactly how you want to have this all manifest, because we're all in this together. We are all dreaming this current reality together. And
Mhm.
so, what do we want it to look like when we're out of this? What do we want it to look like after, November 2020? What do
Yes.
we want to have it look like after the elections happen? Whoever the person is that wins is the point, and the meta point above that, which is how do we want all of us to be in cahoots and community with one another?
Mhm.
So, how can we rebuild the bridges that have been severed with the rest of the world? And I think this is what I was starting to talk about before, is that, as a cultural arts ambassador that you described, part of my job is to go around to these places that have been ravaged by war and to talk to people there about how, U.S. connections with them. And a lot of it is done through arts as advocacy. So the way that we build bridges is through music, through dance, through theater, through, getting people to that heart place so that they can express freely and authentically without having to be prescribed. And kind of what we were talking about before the show came on, Paula, about how we're going to riff and let, organic manifestation and conversation happen. That's where
Mhm.
the truth lies. That's where when it doesn't feel so like, welcome to Wonderland, like it's bigger than that. It's broader than that. It's more lively than that. It's spicier than that. And I think now that we're trying to have true courageous conversations around race and race relations in this country, that will allow and afford us to get to the heart of a lot of different matters. And it might be crunchy at first. People are afraid to speak their truth because we've been part of this system that's been built up for inequity to thrive since before we were born. So we're all born into this place. We can't blame each other and shame each other and guilt each other. We need to figure out how to unpack the system and recreate it so it's equitable for us all. And
Yes.
so, right, exactly. So the first
Mm.
step of that is we have to embody the positive possibilities of connectivity and love and joy with one another and understanding one another, even though, and embrace diversity, embrace difference, embrace the beauty of it. We want the roux of life. You know, you put all the things when you're making a gumbo, you got all kinds of spices going on. A
Yeah.
masala, the deliciousness. If it's just salt and pepper, honey, it's not going to taste that great. You got to add some turmeric in there, get some, you know, you got to get it going on so that everybody can participate in this gumbo of life, right?
Yeah. I love
Okay.
that analogy. That's
Hey.
so beautiful. You know, I have to share something with you this morning, just this morning, and I don't think she even knew that I was interviewing you today. My daughter sent me video from my birthday weekend. This was actually the night of my birthday, and she and my son and I were on our feet dancing and singing the old Doobie Brothers song, What a Fool Believes.
Oh, I love that song.
And I mean, you cannot watch
You
this
came from
video.
somewhere back in the long
That's
ago.
it. And you can't watch this video without laughing and feeling joy.
Right.
And that's what I know is part of what you do. You don't just talk, but the words you say are beautiful and the message is amazing.
Thank you.
But there's magic in the sounds that you make, and I would love it if you could share a little bit of that voice with my listeners.
You know, I think there's so, thank you, my darling angel. And yes, I do believe that music is the salve that is what quenches all of us. And I'm going to sing you a song, but first I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
So when I was the first envoy that I went on with the U.S. State Department as a cultural arts ambassador was to Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria.
Mhm.
And it was with this amazing organization called Intersections International, and we were working on something called the Iraqi Voices Amplification Project, and it was working with Iraqi refugees who had fled from the war, and they were in these places. And so UNHCR, United Nations for the High Commission on Refugees, wanted to connect with these refugees and find out what their needs were, what their story was. And a lot of the people, as you can well imagine, were in a place of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, around being of a war victim and displaced from their homes, and how so much of their traditions are embedded in the land, in the place that they live. You know, there are a lot of ceremonies before a girl gets married to a whoever, a partner, a man probably, that involve dates from the date trees, and you can't get those things, and spices and times of year and things that are associated with crops that are growing at a particular season, in a particular season. And so there was none of that. They were in a foreign land, in a foreign place, and still in hiding. And so we would go to these homes that were built out of cinder blocks, or, you know, tucked in somebody's tiny back area where they had to be quiet and, you know, make their children be quiet. And it was just so powerful how silence had become such a vital part of their survival. And it was the antithesis of the way that their culture was normally moving and thriving. Anyway, I went to this woman's house, and her name was Salima, and they were asking her, you know, all of these different things about, can you fill out this form and tell us all about how, you know, hard it is being a refugee, which is just, what kind of question is that? I mean, I understand the sentiment behind it, but, you know, you're talking to someone who is like trying to literally live day by day, and she was frozen in this place of fear and sadness. And she said, I have no memory, only sadness. And she kept just saying that over and over again. And they were getting nowhere in this interview. And so finally I just started singing. I started singing, Ishe Olua Koleba Jeo. And she had no idea what I was singing, but I kept singing Ishe Olua Koleba Jeo. Koleba Jeo. Koleba Jeo. Ishe Olua Koleba Jeo. And the intention and the sentiment around that was a lullaby and holding her in love and in sound. She had no idea that, I was speaking Yoruba to her. She had no idea that language, and I couldn't understand her, but we understood love in that moment. And she cracked wide open and started crying and sobbing and remembering all of the things about the fact that her daughter and her grandchildren were still in Iraq and on the run, and all of the things that you would imagine would freeze someone in pain and anguish. She was able to remember and share in that moment. And it was music that allowed for that cracking open. It was the intention behind the sonic ephemeral that was holding her in that love. And that is bigger than me. That is bigger than all of us.
All of
That
us.
is channeled from the great beyond. That is channeled from Jah. That is channeled from whatever name you want to call that higher essence that has sewn this whole magic experience together.
Oh, that is
That's from there.
so beautiful. And on that note, we're going to take a quick
A
break.
break.
I know I hate these darn breaks because
That's all right,
I'm
girlfriend. Do
just
your
in
thing.
the magic of you, darling.
Aw.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, Ami, if you're ready, let's just do this. But I want to be sure that I remember to give your contact info, or if there's anything in particular you want to point people to,
Okay.
then we will do that too. So I'll give you
Cool.
the opportunity.
Okay.
All right, my darling, here we go. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio, here with Paula Shaw. I am talking today with Amikaeyla Gaston, who, as I said in the beginning of this show, is truly one of the bright lights on the planet. If you missed our first 3 segments, you must go back and listen to this show, because I think it will enlighten you, inspire you, and perhaps even heal you if you're dealing with some hurts that you feel like you can't get past. So, Ami, we're talking about this amazing experience you just had, or you didn't just have, but you were just talking to us about, where a woman whose heart was broken because of war and being displaced and all of the things she'd gone through was burst open through music, through the healing power of music. I remember my daughter, who is a singer, who I want so much for you one day to meet.
Oh, cool.
My daughter, Erin, had to write a senior thesis, and the title was The Healing Power of Music. And I remember the first time I heard you tell that story, I asked you, is it the sounds of the words? Is it the energy? Is it the heart that you're coming from, your intention? What is it that's healing? And what did you say back to me?
Girlfriend, I don't know exactly what I said back to you then, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say now, which is
Yeah.
it's all of that.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
all of that. It's
Yes.
all of that. And it's especially, and I really think that we did have this conversation around, I don't know if you remember the whole thing around there was a moment where everybody was like putting positive words on water, because there was this, do you remember this?
Oh
There
my
was
goodness. Are you talking about Isoro?
Yes. Emoto, that's right.
Yes, that's so crazy. We're so on the same wavelength. I was going to bring that up too.
Shut up.
Go ahead, tell it.
Exactly. Well, it was an incredible study where he looked at how just putting an intention around words changed the construct of water molecules, and how they went from this kind of disarray to this kind of perfect in alignment, these crystalline formations, like just gorgeous, beautiful, and talking about the power of intention, and talking about the power of positivity, and talking about the power of sound. Well, in addition to that, if you look up Joseph Campbell and the Mozart effect, where they talk about how sound for cancer cells is very similar to the water experiment. So cancer cells are very like disorganized and amorphous, and they just grow and they're going crazy, rah. But if you put, and they've shown different studies for this, and it's still, being fine-tuned in the experimentation of this, but they've shown initially that cancer cells, when you play, and they use Mozart, and it's why it's called the Mozart effect. When you play Mozart over these cancer cells, they kind of align. They get organized, they get syncretized, and they stop becoming cancerous and growing out of control. And so, it's an opportunity for us to entertain, if nothing else, the possibility that music is medicine. And that's how I got out of the hospital, honey child. The doctors would come in every day and they would say, well, today we're going to have to cut off your legs. And I would say, okay, maybe. And only these 2 fingers would work. So I'd write down on a pad of paper, maybe tomorrow, not today. And I would spend the rest of the afternoon healing and doing the work that I could do, doing Reiki and positive thought. But most of all, I listened to music. And I listened to music that wasn't like, brown chicken, brown cow. It wasn't like music from, the radio. It was music that was completely, I know, right? That was completely focused on healing. So there was a fantastic musician that just passed away called Brother Ah, and he would literally take 2 glasses of water and pour one into the other in a prayer meditation and just, and he wasn't saying anything in particular, but his energy and his intention was around healing. And I listen to that all the time. It's his Brother Ah, Lights and Meditations from the Womb. So if anybody wants to check that out, check it out. It's very, very powerful. But I needed to hear things that were in harmony with one another, things that were about raising vibration and healing. And, this was pre-binaural beats. So even now, can you imagine? And that is what gave me the strength to deal with, the debriding process, because I had all these 3rd-degree burns on 70% of my lower body. And so they'd have to come in and scrub and scrape. And, they, according to the, American Journal of Medicine, 3rd-degree burns is the most painful type of wound that you can have. There's no morphine, there's no type of any kind of opiate that can help quell the pain of that. And so I had to rely on something larger than that, which was music. And music, and since then I've been going around, and part of the reason why that I can do all this stuff with the State Department is I have a music as medicine program, and what we do is we go around and teach music and teach and do a cultural exchange. I don't really teach much of anything. I mean, it's definitely back and forth. They teach me as much as I teach them, but being in a place of acknowledging that it can save your life. And it can save your life not just because of the sounds you make, but the intention that you hold with it, the way that you want to share your heart and your truest authentic voice. And that's where I really focus my lifetime career now on, which is working with healers. So I founded this organization called the International Cultural Arts and Healing Sciences Institute. And it's right after I sang for the Dalai Lama. And that is a fun story. I'll tell you that in 2 seconds, in the last minute of time that we've got. Okay. But, I created this organization to really bring about a way for artists and healers to come together and create a place for this kind of healing to happen. And so music therapy has grown from this, and everything has really expanded and exploded since my accident. But it is holding all of the intentions of, body, mind, spirit alignment coming together. And that is just a fabulous petri dish for amazing transformation.
And music is something that affects us on every level.
Every level.
Absolutely. Physically, emotionally, mentally. That's You're right. So right. It permeates everything.
That's right. That's right. It sure does.
So tell me the name one more time of this organization you founded.
And I'm telling you all right now, my website is down, but come check it out in like a week. It's called the International Cultural Arts and Healing Sciences Institute.
Beautiful.
ICAHSI. Yeah.
And what is the website address?
It's ICAHSI, ACAHSI.org, or Amikaeyla, my name, AMIKAEYLA.com. And they'll connect together.
Perfect. And we will have that information in the show notes, which will be on changeitupradio.com.
What a great name for a radio station, baby. Change it up. That's right. Change it up, girl.
I think I'm going to redo my music, my intro music, and have it for you doing that. Whoa, that'd be so good. All right, you teased us. Tell us about singing for the Dalai Lama.
Okay, this is a fabulous story. Really fast. Okay. So I'm at work. And when you get these emails that are like, I have $6 million to give to you. Can you put it in your bank account? You're always like, what is going on? So I had the same response to this email that I got that came into my inbox that said, from the Dalai Lama. I was like, what are you talking about here?
Yeah, this has got to be a
What
scam.
are you talking about here? So it said, from the Dalai Lama, you have been chosen. The Dalai Lama has chosen you, 1 out of 6 people from around the world, to come and sing for this commemoration for the Golden Buddha statue. And I was like,
Oh,
baloney, pastrami. All right, I'll click on it. They were like, maybe we send you information. I was like, SURE, sure. That's all I wrote back. Sure. Like, please. Honey, don't you know, in the mail came this big package that smelled like incense, and it was just gorgeous, and like this handwritten scrolly writing. And I was like, what is going on right now? I still didn't think it was real. I took it to my mother. I was like, Mommy, you have to open this for me because I think this is... So she opened it, and it was from the Dalai Lama as a personal invitation to come and sing for him, inaugurating the 75 golden Buddha statue in the middle of New Delhi. So I was like, oh, I'm going.
I'm on board. Yeah.
I'm going, right. So I get on the plane, I get over there, just tons and tons and tons of beautiful Tibetans that are there ready for, the Dalai Lama. And there was this energy in the air, it was kind of like the eye of the storm, like you're waiting for the storm to happen.
Yeah.
It's coming. And I was like, what's happening? I've only seen books and calendars and, sayings from the Dalai Lama. I've never been in the presence of the Dalai Lama.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, let me check this brother out. Let's see what all the hype is, like, what's going on with the Dalai Lama? Okay. It is real. He walked into the space and it was like it was just,
Oh my God.
purity, like pure energy. Like you talk about seeing an aura, like it was just like, and so they sat him on his throne and everybody sang, and I was the closing number. So everybody sang, and it was my turn. So I get up there and I got my little drum and I'm singing with my 2 little buddies, and we'd been practicing and we were ready. I sang my song and I sang the last note. I said, hey, Baba Dalai Lama. And everybody started cracking up. And I had my eyes closed when I sang. And I was like, oh, and I opened my eyes and he's cracking up. His little feet are like, ha, 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 like flipping his little toes up in the air. I was like, what happened? I missed it. Doggone it. I thought maybe something funny happened while my eyes were closed. So I was singing. Girl, I finished the song. 7,000 Tibetans come running up there, kissing my face. Oh, we love you so much. They're so excited by what I said. I have no idea what happened. I thought maybe it's because I was the last number. I have no idea. So now it's time to go to the Dalai Lama is going to put this beautiful scarf around my neck, his scarf of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so he puts it around my neck and he whispers in my ear, I'll be your daddy. And I was like, what happening right now? What's happening? What? Oh my goodness. Let me find out. I didn't know what he was talking about until I got back to the Tibetan embassy, and they were all screaming and yelling. And one of the women said, we love when you called him daddy. And I was like, when did I call him daddy? Well, Baba means daddy. Now, in Africa, Baba means great teacher. It's a sign of respect. You call him Girl, I called Baba, and he was like, and apparently nobody over 3 years old calls anybody Baba there. So I was like,
Oh, that's hysterical. What a great story. Oh, I too had the pleasure of being, I didn't sing for him, but I was in the room. He was at a conference. I was at a women's conference many years ago. And what I was so struck by was he's so adorable. He's so sweet. He came out and the lights were really bright and he couldn't see us really well. He reaches into his orange robe, pulls out the most adorable little visor and puts it on. And he's just smiling. And, oh my God, adorable.
You're kidding me. Yeah, he's candy. Like, definitely. After that, I was like, oh my gosh, I love you.
You know what, my darling girl? We have run over. My sound engineer is going to be challenged with fitting it all in, but I don't care. This was amazing. I love you with all my heart. Mm-hmm. And again, give them the website where they can learn more about you and your work, Ami.
Yes, it is Amikaeyla, AMIKAEYLA.com. But for real, go to Facebook, y'all. Come be my friend. That'd be fabulous.
Oh, that'd be really fabulous.
Yeah.
And she's got an amazing TED Talk. And what's the title of it again?
Dare to be dauntless.
Dare to be dauntless. That's what I should have called this show. Darling, you are dauntless, and I love you, and thank
Precious.
you for being with us, and thank you
Thank
to all my
you.
listeners. You can hear us in San Diego on Sunday evenings on AM 1170 and 96.1 FM. And we will be on every podcast platform. This show will be next week on every podcast platform, including the new Podopolo, which is off the charts. Check it out.
Very
All
cool.
right. And until next week, and Miss Ami, bless you. Take good care of yourself, and thank you for being
Yes.
with
Thank
us.
you. Change it up, radio. Okay, bye.
Oh, I love that. I love that.